Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, diving into this Texas Tech team and talking about why they are a true dark horse in the Big 12 heading into 2023. And I'm going to be talking about Texas Tech in a little bit of a different lens that I think you hear a lot of the national media talk about Texas Tech, right? A lot of the emphasis goes to the offense and returning so many good receivers. Tyler Shuck, a really loaded quarterback room. The reason I'm high on Texas Tech, like everyone else, is for a little bit of a different reason, and that is on the defensive side of the ball. And on the surface, I could see why people are skeptical of this Texas Tech defense, right? Not elite numbers last year. You lose Tyree Wilson, who is a top 10 NFL draft pick. You lose some off-ball linebackers in Merriweather and Eldridge, who were your two leading tacklers. On the surface, you have some question marks about this Texas Tech defense heading into 2023, but I'm actually pretty high in this group, and it's not because of the star power. It's Joey McGuire and Tim DeRuyter and the staff have done a really nice job building depth. And you look across the country at the elite defenses. Yes, a lot of them have star power, but Georgia, for example, they have the depth, right? Especially when it gets to the end of the season and guys are banged up. You have guys in your 2 and 3 deep who you trust and are able to play. But more importantly, especially on the defensive line, having a one group is great. But if you have a 2 and 3 group that can come on the field and not really be a liability and provide production, I think that's going to mean a lot for Texas Tech. And as a depth standpoint, as a complete standpoint on defense, heading into 2023, I think Texas Tech might be better on this side of the ball than they were in 2022. Now, before we dive into it, talk about some personnel, I just want to say thank you to you guys. I talked some Texas Tech earlier this summer. It's no secret. I'm pretty high on this group. You guys have been absolutely awesome. The Texas Tech fans, with all the support in the comments, like really insightful comments that I was learning from. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. So if you do have any takes, let me know in the comment section. We'll chop it up there. Appreciate you guys rocking with us. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And let's get into this Texas Tech defense. And I'm going to start in the secondary. I think this is a group that if they stay healthy, I think could truly be one of the better secondaries we see in the Big 12. And it starts with their cornerbacks. And why I want to emphasize the importance of cornerbacks, especially in this Tim DeRuyter Texas Tech defense, is like they're going to blitz. They're going to put guys in the box. And what does that mean for your cornerbacks? You have to be able to trust those guys on islands with not much safety help. And Rashad Williams, and more importantly, Malik Dunlap, I think are two guys that you really trust to handle their own on the outside. If you want to walk in some safeties and kind of put your cornerbacks on an island, I think Malik Dunlap, Rashad Williams certainly can do that. And then you get to the safeties. If this group stays healthy, Taylor Demerson, Tyler Owens, two guys, especially Tyler Owens, who I think is an absolute stud that just needs to stay healthy, because when he's on the field, like he is popping off the film. You just got to stay healthy if you're Tyler Owens. And then the last piece, and kind of one of the more growing important pieces of defenses, is that star position. Having a guy in CJ Baskerville who's played a ton of football, coming in the transfer portal, kind of a chess piece, really good in man coverage, but can come in the box and tackle, do a lot of different things. Texas or defenses across the country are working on getting as much speed on the field as possible to cover these spread offenses, especially in the Big 12, but also being able to stop the run. That nickel star hybrid linebacker corner has become an integral part in defenses, and getting a guy who's done it at a high level in CJ Baskerville, I think is going to be massive for Texas Tech. So you look at the secondary, I think this group takes a step up, and it was already a pretty solid group last year. And if I guess one thing I'd say why I'm optimistic about Texas Tech making some improvements on defense is limiting the turnovers. Like, I mean, the Texas Tech 2 turnovers per game last year put their defense in really bad spots at times. They can do that as well. I think you're going to see some improvements just on the stat sheet, but continuing to kind of dive in to this position in the depth chart, the linebackers is probably the question you have, the biggest question mark you have, right? Losing Merriweather, losing Eldridge. Those guys were all over the field, especially Merriweather. I thought one of the better linebackers in the Big 12. The question is who can step up and provide kind of the replacement of production that those two guys, your two leading tacklers, had. I mean, from the buzz that I've been reading about Texas Tech, it is Josiah Pierre, a guy that's played kind of all over for Texas Tech. He blitzes off the edge. Him settling into that off-ball backer spot, really optimistic about what he can do. And then Jacob Rodriguez, a guy that came into Virginia as a quarterback, has flashed at times for Texas Tech. Excuse me. I love having that middle linebacker having been a former quarterback, right? In terms of like being able to diagnose what offenses are trying to do, seeing the game at a little bit of a different level. At the end of the day, the middle linebacker, kind of the quarterback of the defense, kind of optimistic about what Jacob Rodriguez can do. But if you did ask me where your question marks are, it's not going to be on the defensive line replacing Tyree Wilson as much as it's going to be at that linebacker spot where you do have to replace two really good backers. Now, getting up to the up front, and this is probably the biggest question on the surface level that Texas Tech fans have, or I shouldn't say Texas Tech fans, but national media members have of this Texas Tech team is how do you replace Miles Murphy and all the production, but more importantly, all the havoc that Tyree Wilson. I mean, you go back and watch Tyree Wilson, even if he wasn't getting a sack, getting a tackle for a loss, his ability to blow up plays, blow up run plays, blow up pockets, it was next level. And that's why he went as a top 10 pick. How do you replace that production? I really like the two edge rushers Texas Tech has. Miles Cole, I'm not going to say he's going to have a breakout year like Tyree Wilson because that's probably just a little bit too much to ask for. But in terms of body type, in terms of who can do it, Miles Cole has a very similar body type to a guy like Tyree Wilson. Really optimistic about what he can do. But the guy I'm most excited for, Steve Linton coming from Syracuse as a Wake Forest fan. I've seen Steve Linton, know him from the ACC. This is a dude with a different level of like burst and bend around tackles. He's a guy that Miles Cole, probably more of a heavy-handed guy, going to go through tackles. Steve Linton, going to be a guy that's just winning off the edge on a consistent basis. I really like that pass rushing duo from Steve Linton, from Miles Cole. And then you get to the inside. And I said the secondary is probably the strength of this group. The close second would be Tony Bradford Jr. and Jalen Hutchins, stalwarts in this Texas Tech defense, phenomenal at double teaming, getting penetration. You would be hard pressed to find a more underrated interior defensive line group than Jalen Hutchins and Tony Bradford Jr. And two guys I'm really excited about, but you get into the depth and why I'm so high on this Texas Tech defense is they got guys behind them as well who can be contributors. And going back to that Georgia Bulldog standpoint, where it's important to have a one deep, it's important to have good starters, but it's equally as important, especially on the defensive line, to have depth. I think Texas Tech kind of checks those boxes, especially up front, and that's probably the reason why I'm so high on this Texas Tech defense heading into 2023. And they were really good in the red zone, forced a lot of turnovers. If they can just limit some more explosive plays, a metric that they weren't that good in, I mean, I think you're going to see this Texas Tech defense take some strides that many people don't see happening for the Red Raiders heading into 2023. Now, I don't want to completely ignore the offense. Like this offense, really excited to just watch what it can be under Zach Kittley year two. Tyler Shuck stays healthy. I mean, I think he's the quarterback one comfortably. He gets the ball out quick, can extend plays when he needs to. I think when you watch Tyler Shuck, he operates a little bit cleaner than Donovan Smith or than Morton did last year, and also limiting the turnovers. That is one thing that this Texas Tech team that had a good season in 2022, it's hard to win football games losing the turnover battle like Texas Tech did. They lost some games because of turnovers. If you can limit some turnovers on the offense, this is a group that's going to be really good. And then you take a look at the skill around them. Loic Fungi, I think you have a couple guys, Loic Fungi and Jerram Bradley, two guys that I think go in the NFL draft next year. I mean, you're talking about two difference makers at the wide receiver position. And then you kind of look across the board. Miles Price, a guy that can really get it done. And then I want to talk about Dre McCray coming from Austin Peay, apparently one of the fastest. And I'm not going to pretend like I know a ton about Dre McCray. All I know is that he has absolute burners on him. And I mean, you talk about a Texas Tech defense that wants to spread opposing defenses out, or Texas Tech offenses that want to spread opposing defenses out. Dre McCray is a guy that I think you could really utilize in terms of getting the football in space, working vertically. This is an elite pass catching group. And then you look at the run game, you bring in Taj Brooks back. You lose Roger Thompson, who is really good, but Taj Brooks, I think, is a very good all-purpose back. And when I took a deep dive into Texas Tech a little earlier in the summer, a lot of you guys were saying Cameron Valdez, look out for him. Added him to the notebook. We'll be keeping an eye on him in this 2023 season. And the last thing that I probably want to stress for Texas Tech is the offensive line. I like what you have inside. Rusty Stats coming over in the portal. Cole Spencer. tackle play needs to get a little bit better. That's probably where you got Monroe Mills at left, Caleb Rogers. I know there's a few battles going on in the fall camp with that offensive tackle position. I would expect that group to take a step forward, and that's probably the group that I'm probably most concerned with for Texas Tech. But if they can figure that out, keep Tyler Shuck healthy, who again I think can be really, really good quarterback in this offense, you're looking at a team that can make some noise in the Big 12. Now, kind of projecting what needs to happen for Texas Tech to truly be a dark horse to potentially win the Big 12. One, pass protection and healthy at quarterback. Like, yeah, I like Morton. I think he's the future of this Texas Tech offense. But Tyler Shuck, I think a lot of and I would be interested to hear your guys' thoughts, but Tyler Shuck is probably the guy that I think operates this offense the best. He's the one that takes care of the football the best. He's probably the most accurate passer. If he can stay healthy and play 12 games, potentially 13 games going into the Big 12 championship game, you really like Texas Tech. And then you look at, you can just cut those turnovers in half. One of the worst teams in terms of turning the ball over on the offensive side of the football. If they can limit those, I mean, you're looking at probably 2 more wins for Texas Tech last year. They return a lot of production on the offensive side of the ball. I think the sky's the limit. Joey McGuire has this thing going in the right direction. The personnel is getting better. The talent's getting better on the recruiting trail. You got to be really excited for Texas Tech stacking another good season in 2023 in the future. Extremely bright for this Texas Tech program. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.